Hey, help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also hit that like button to subscribe if you want more Cavs focused content.
Is set for Sunday. They will play the Miami Heat, and I think that's an interesting matchup for the Cavs. And in a lot of ways, I think the Cavs are better off for playing a team that's gonna get you more prepared for the challenges of the playoffs, like Miami. And I'll discuss that later because I don't think Miami was the easiest team in the play-in that the Cavs could have drew. I think it was between Orlando and them as the two toughest draws they could have. I'm confident about the Cavs' ability to get out the series. So it's not really about ease of victory for me. I want them to be prepared for certain things. And I think the best thing for the Cavs that happened in this game was that it went into overtime. It was close. So, it might be a natural low when they start the series out on Sunday. But let's talk about that game real quick because it was interesting if you're a Cavs fan watching, because the Hawks, they were pretty much, for the most part in that game, carried by the two former Cavs in the DeAndre Hunter trade. George Niang and Karis LeVert. And you saw everything that was helpful about George Niang and Karis LeVert in Cleveland. And then you saw every reason why you are not upset that Karis LeVert, not Karis LeVert, but what kind of Karis? Because he shot a disgusting air ball in the fourth quarter and then missed a wide open three in overtime that would have been huge. But more so George Niang, because in the last minute and 30 seconds, George Niang took it upon himself to shoot the ball 3 times. And when I say George Niang shot the ball 3 times, I'm not saying George Niang, the Hawks offense was so stagnant that they threw George Niang a grenade and he shot it 3 times, right? That's not what happened. I'm saying George Niang got the ball with 20 seconds in the shot clock. It said, nah, I'm going to get us a bucket 3 times in that game. And it ended as predictably as you would thought. I thought for a good chunk there that the last possession of this game was going to be George Niang trying to post up somebody to get a shot. When that's just absolutely not what George Niang needed to do out there. I think he got benched for the rest of the game because of it. So, you saw everything that you liked about George and that drove you absolutely crazy about George, which is, he really thought he was the man in the fourth quarter. That was crazy. That was crazy to witness. That, one George was out there for those minutes for Atlanta, and then that George made that decision for them. It's good that he's not in our crunch time lineup anymore. But shout out to George. Shout out to Karis. The Cavs won a ring. They get a ring too. And I think, they deserve it for sure. But just interesting to see that whole dynamic play out. But the Cavs play the Miami Heat, and I actually think this is better for the Cavs because Miami's not going to be a pushover in that 1-8 matchup. They're going to force the Cavaliers to be focused in the first round, and I think that is going to set the tone for Cleveland, right? This is a veteran group in Miami. They have a ton of guys in that rotation who's played a lot of playoff basketball. Their best player, Bam, he's been to the NBA Finals as one of the best players on that team. So, no slouch here with the Miami Heat. Same thing with Tyler Hero, one of the best players on that Miami Heat conference championship team. And then you got Eric Spoelstra as the coach. Crazy to say for somebody who is about my age, which feels even crazier to say, but because Eric Spoelstra, we remember when Eric Spoelstra got the job, people thought he wasn't qualified in 2012, well, not 2012, in 2010 or 2009, and now he's the longest tenured coach outside of Greg Popovich in the NBA. So it's crazy how time flies, but you go against a veteran coach. So this is going to be a challenge for Kenny Atkinson. It's going to be a challenge for our bigs, right? You need them to play big here against Bam Adebayo. So, I want them to show up. It's going to be wake up for them. And then the guards for Miami, they're on and off type guards, but they can have big games and they're going to give you consistent effort, right? We saw that with Davion Mitchell in this game, the Donovan Mitchell imposter, right? We got Donovan Mitchell at the house. He looked like it, right? He's going to give you nonstop effort and will, right? And that's what the Miami Heat are going to give you, nonstop effort. So if the Cavs want to take care of business versus Miami, they're going to have to come in there locked in from day one and be focused on the defensive end. And I think that's the most important thing for the Cleveland Cavaliers that I want to see in round one of the playoffs. Do you have that switch, right? We've been talking about the switch all season, right? Why aren't the Cavs playing defense all the time? Should we be worried, or is this a team that can turn that quality about themselves up and down on the dial? I've been on the side of saying I think the Cavs have demonstrated that they can turn that defensive intensity dial up and down at will. So you're going to need that defensive intensity dial turned up, because what you can do with Miami, if you force them into enough bad shots, they're not going to make a ton. Then they're going to start forcing, pressing, turnovers. You're going to start getting open shots. Once you get those open shots to fall, you can pull away from Miami. But it's going to take a lot of effort at the beginning of these games to get there. It's going to take a lot of defensive effort at the beginning of these games to get here, right? You can't just roll the ball out and think you're just going to shoot over Miami and they're not going to have any problems. They're going to play you very hard. They're going to be really disciplined. They're going to make really good adjustments to you. They're not going to just lay down and let you take it. And this is a team that you got to kill in the playoffs. And that might sound a little bit dramatic, but here's what I mean by that, right? I think if you play the Hawks, there was a real chance that you go up 2-0 on the Hawks and the Hawks are ready to fold, right? And to be fair to the Atlanta Hawks, they showed a lot of fight in that play-in game, right? But I think there was a chance of that with Atlanta because they're not a veteran team. They're super young. I think Trae Young's really the only vet they're really relying on a day-to-day basis. You're super familiar with their other two veteran players. I thought that there was a good chance there that if the Cavs show Atlanta what they had in those first two games, Atlanta folds, it's a clean sweep. You don't really gotta put the kill shot in. But with Miami, you could go up 3-0. They're still gonna fight, right? Like you gotta break their soul to beat Miami, or at least you gotta come close to breaking their soul to beat them. So you're gonna have to finish a series. And the reason I think that's important is that is the one thing I have not seen this group do. Right, we've seen the Cavs advance a series, right, with the Orlando Magic series last year. But the one thing I'll be critical about that team with was after the first two games last year against Orlando, it felt like we had that in the bag. And then we take a big lead in game 3, and then we choke it up. And next thing you know, we in a 7-game series, right? We didn't finish them. We didn't put them out when we could have put them out. Instead, we let them fester and let them gain confidence on us and make this series much longer than it had to be. So this year, I don't want to see the Cavs allow that to happen. They get up 2-0 on Miami, they got to come for real on that game 3 and not let anything change or not let the momentum of the series shift. I need the Cavs to finish a team in the playoffs, end the series. Don't let it linger, right? Don't let it linger till a game 7. Am I confident that if it got to that point, the Cavs will win? Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. But I don't want it to get to that point. Definitely don't let it linger. That's what I want to see. Good defensive effort consistently throughout this series, and then don't let the series linger if you get the momentum in it. And I expect that the Cavs should get the momentum in this series. I'm not going to give a game prediction. I'm not going to give a sweep prediction or anything like that, but that's what I want to see the Cavs do, right? End this series in due time. Don't let it linger. Don't let it become one of these things. Finish this series. Don't give Miami life. Play hard. Even if you don't make your shots, if you're not shooting great, I think you can beat Miami as long as you play really good defense. I think the shots will come with the ball movement. We'll be able to get shots in the paint, all of that, right? It's more about just giving that consistent effort defensively versus a team like this, because they can't score to keep up with you. And then if you start draining threes, then we know that's going to be very difficult for Miami to keep up with. But that's what I'm looking forward to. That's what I'm hoping I see the Cleveland Cavaliers accomplish. Let me know in the comment section what you're hoping that the Cavs accomplish. Now that we know who the Cavs will be playing in the first round, it will be the Miami Heat. Are you excited about this? Are you down about this? Or are you kind of just neutral about this and excited to see what this team looks like? You know, I can see a lot of people being neutral on this. Me personally, I'm excited because I'm excited that they're gonna get a real, not a real test, but you know, a strong and experienced opponent, because I feel like if they close out them easily, then I feel so much better about them for the rest of the playoffs, because, you know, you're potentially going to have to go through, you know, maybe it's Doc Rivers, but it could also be Rick Carlisle. But, you know, in order to get to an NBA Finals for the Cavs, you're going to have to beat Eric Spoelstra, a NBA champion coach. Rick Carlisle and Doc Rivers have both won NBA championships in the past. And then you're anticipating that the Boston Celtics make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Obviously, that group and that coach have won a NBA championship before. So, you know, go ahead, figure it out, because you're going to have to go up against a championship coach anyway at some point in the playoffs. So get your reps in the 7-game series. And Kenny, you know, love to see him get put to the test here, and see what he comes out cooking when Spo makes those adjustments and everything else. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.